Sungeetha, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we walk into the future, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you grow up?
Good morning, Dr. Nick, and thank you for the opportunity. I grew up in a very small town in Durban called Mariannhill, a very scenic environment and perfect for young kids to roam the streets in the evenings after school and catch up with neighborhood friends, where I believe my strongest bonds have been built between neighbors and my best friends through the years that have energized me, watched me grow, were the pillars of my support whilst our parents were hard at work. And Mariannhill is known for its lush green rolling hills. And when we go back home every so often, it's really nice to go back to our roots. Where there is extensive farming, rivers and streams that surround us. And it really is a good break from the city life that we become accustomed to.
And can you tell us what was your dream career when you grew up?
I had many dreams of many different careers growing up, but as many people would know, growing up in an Indian family, we are already preordained for a career, which is either in medicine, law, engineering, or accounting. So our parents had said to us at a very young age, this is what you're going to do when you finish school, and therefore prepared us for that career. I always knew I was going to have a career in dealing with people. I'm a very extroverted individual. I'm energized of the energy of others. And I thought, well, within the four very narrow constraints of what my parents had laid down for me, I was definitely going to be a lawyer. And I watched many legal series growing up. Of course, all of them were American. And the one that drew me very close from an identifiable perspective was Ally McBeal. So I was convinced that I was going to be her when I grew up. And as I actually, went through my LLB and my social science degrees, I actually just realized that the South African judiciary was just not appealing to me. It was not like the American judiciary, where you could do closing arguments in front of a jury, which was something I was prepared to do. In fact, I was even in the school debating team in preparing myself to be a lawyer. And I realized we couldn't do that, and it lost its appeal for me. And I decided to then pivot my career into HR.
And can you tell us who inspired you in your early days?
It would definitely have to be my grandmother and my mother. In fact, if I think about my grandmother, which is very often, I think about her growing up. She couldn't read and she couldn't write. So every time she wanted to note down something, she often did it in a series of ones and zeros, much like binary code. And I have those pieces of papers of hers to remind me how far the generation of women have come in my family. My mother ran our business, and she was definitely a equal contributor to the household. And I watched her leadership style, as I grew up in an apartheid era in South Africa. Our business wasn't just limited to the communities in which we grew up. It was extensive to people that had visited those communities, be it African or white or colored at that time. And I watched my mother pivot the way she spoke to different people to gain the most out of them. She was abundant in confidence. She was abundant in her reading, and so therefore could make very informed decisions and choices when she spoke to people. And she was very respected for that. And, that in and by itself had showed me the progress my mother had made from the era of my grandmother. And I knew I had to take that up a notch higher. And that is why I ensured I poured everything into my education, obviously with help from my parents. And if I look at my 7-year-old daughter today, she's certainly far ahead of where I am or where I was at her age. So for me, it's important that every generation sets the path and sets the tone for the generation that comes after them, particularly from a female perspective.
And Sangeetha, you mentioned education and your LLB. I believe you earned degrees at UKZN, at UNISA, at MIT Sloan. and the London Business School.
Yes.
Looking back over your education, can you maybe tell us what was the best moment? What was maybe the most memorable episode?
I think achieving, the first thing is I want to say the freedom of going to a university post apartheid in South Africa, where you firstly mixing with all races. That was such a pivotal moment for me because we grew up in an Indian community. We went to schools that were Indian, and you were largely surrounded by people who looked like you, who thought like you, who had the same dreams as you. And suddenly, when you get to university post apartheid, you are exposed to different races, different thinking, different cultures. And that in and by itself was such a wow moment for me. The first 3 months at university was getting to experience just different people from all walks of life, those who were rich and who got in because they were rich, and then those who are absolutely intelligent and got in via bursaries, and those that worked hard and got good marks at school. That was very interesting for me. And I think that is where I've learned to be adaptable. And I was very cognizant from that age to work with different races and different cultures and help shape my own perspective of the world. For me, university was not about the degree or the piece of paper or the knowledge that I was going to get. The knowledge was on the streets, learning in the corridors, building relationship and stakeholders. And those are the relationships that have carried me to where I am today.
Now, Sangeetha, I believe you started your career at EPSA. You
Yes.
then went on to IBM, Old Mutual. Would you say there was a turning point, or maybe a couple of turning points?
Yes, most certainly, Dr. Nick. There were very different turning points at very pivotal moments in my career. I mean, just out of interest, I had joined APSA on their first human capital grad program. And somewhere during that grad program, I got a call from home to say, "But what are you doing in HR? You should be in law." And I actually just realized that I wanted to be in HR because that's where my passion lay. I was dealing with a diversity of topics, learning about people, and obviously using my legal knowledge during that point in my career, which was very early on. So that was the first pivotal point. I knew at that point when I got into that grad program, I was never going to go into law. That was sort of the firm stance. And I think later on in my career at APSA, given that I was there for 14 years, I learned to accept what I was good at. I think more often than not, generalists think they need to be good at everything, and there's nothing that they really specialize in. Actually, that was the complete opposite for me. I've learned that I was good at specializing at things like org design and org realignments. And not many HR practitioners can say that simply because there is a negative connotation attached to that. And once I embraced what I was good at, I became very confident and positive about it. And people started to latch on to my knowledge and expertise. And that really helped me. I moved.
Now, Sangeetha, what would you say is driving you today?
Working with multi-generations in the workforce. It's for the first time we have grandparents leading their grandkids or parents having their kids in the workforce. And it's very interesting to note the different behaviors, the inability of some of the generations to pivot their leadership style to accommodate the younger generations coming in. I'm most excited about preparing workplaces and spaces for Gen Alphas and how we think about accommodating them in the future. And the future is not far away. If I think about my kids, they've got a few more years at school and they'll be knocking on the door very soon. So that is really what's driving me at the moment is how do we shape shift the workforce to accommodate and to leverage off our older generations to share their IP with the younger generations. Because what we find lacking is the soft skills. So technical skills are easy to gain, but the soft skills are very difficult to learn. And the youngsters are not getting that very quickly. So we need to shape that.
Thank you. And Sangeetha, looking into the future, what does the future of leadership mean to you?
For me, it's to be an ambidextrous leader. It's to be able to lead from the front, take your people on a journey, be very clear in the strategic direction that you've set, But at the same time, you need to step up as being the coach and mentor to team members in your team, acknowledging that we are not all at the same place, that one size does not fit all, and ensuring that you set a culture where it is inclusive for everybody. And they feel happy to be there because most of our time is spent at work. So that's very important for me.
And can you tell us what have you learned from your own leadership journey that you consider most important for building future leaders?
A couple of things which has been really great for me, Dr. Nick, is I've learned to be very decisive. I think there can be nothing more annoying to a team of people or people that work for you when a leader is not decisive and decisions drag on, or you create immense amounts of red tape that people have to go through just to get to a decision. So I back myself in my decision-making skills, and I'm very clear from a direction perspective for my team. I've also learned to humble myself. Depending on where the situation arises, you have to humble yourself. And it's important because people have to see that you don't need to have all the answers all of the time. Learning from others who are younger than you is also possible, and you are open to that. And that's gotten me very far. And it's also shown up in the teams that I attract to work into the companies that I have worked for.
Now, Sangeetha, these are challenging times as the world is stumbling from one crisis into the next. What is your advice for future leaders in terms of challenges? What are some of the challenges they should expect to encounter in their career?
Dr. Nick, we live in very tenuous times. And now with the introduction of hybrid working, we know that most leaders are elected to leadership positions largely because they have technical skills or they're great at what they do technically and really good at their jobs. That's how they sort of get those leadership positions. And yes, passing on technical skills and learning them is great. And it's easy, as I said earlier, but it's the soft skills that makes all the difference. We saw a large shift pre-COVID where we really focused on IQ and hiring people for intelligence. But now we should be hiring leaders for EQ, for adaptability, for awareness, and those soft skills like conflict resolution. How do I make decisions quickly? And those things are often lacking in organizations because we simply think they are on-the-job training that you can get and never make a concerted effort to take some time to go and learn those soft skills or partner with somebody that can help us through that. So for me, the imperative is in terms of leading in the future is getting your soft skills aligned.
And Sangeetha, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
Yes, absolutely. I thought about this question quite a bit, Dr. Nick. And I think more often than not, we find that, or we think that mentorship is about mentoring somebody younger than us. And yes, it's absolutely about that, making sure that people come up the rungs, you take people under your wings. And I've done a lot of that. But I wanted to talk to you about two examples today of older people that I mentored whilst I was still quite young in my career, I would say in my 30s. And during this time, I partnered with executives of business, as business partners do. And I encountered two African females who were executives, but just simply didn't know how to make that step up into MD. Be it, number one, in appearance, how we dress, how we speak, the poise and finesse that we show up with as leaders. And then secondly, how do I put myself forward? How do I back myself? And it really was from an inner sense of lack of confidence, I would say. And the fact that many African, Indian, or colored women in particular thought they were never deserving of these MD positions in companies. So having spent almost a year of coaching in terms of how we walk, how we talk, how we dress, how we show up into the boardroom, body language, how we speak, when to speak, eventually these two females became MDs in the company through my help and through my assistance. And it's so nice. Every so often I get an email or a WhatsApp from them to say, I'm here because of you and thank you for all your help. And we should never underestimate the impact that we make, be it small or large, in every single room and every single life that we touch. And that for me is just, one or two of my success stories.
Thank you. And Sangeetha, looking back over your leadership journey and maybe your learning journey, are there any role models of leadership that you would recommend future leaders should learn from?
Yes, absolutely. I would love Emery Brown, who's my current leader at Rand Merchant Bank. She's the CEO. She's been with the company for 22 years, an absolute powerhouse and dynamic leader. I watch her in awe when she's, chairing our meetings, how she prepares, her work ethic, but more importantly, she's also a mom, and how she balances her life at home with her kids and how she works at work. I think that work ethic is severely lacking in the generations that come after us, and we do need to take those extra steps, to put in those extra hours and unlock discretionary effort to get us to these positions of CEO. So she's certainly one of them. And the second one would be my previous MD of Old Mutual Insure, which is Garth Napier. He's had a myriad of experience across insurance, consulting, retail, and it was just so nice to see him pivot his career across different industries and be the leader where all of us in his team just thrived. He gave us the opportunity to be the best versions of ourselves every day. I often say to him, Garth, you've unleashed the beast. And all of us showed up in a way that just turned that business around, much to naysayers' dissatisfaction, where they thought people without insurance backgrounds are not going to succeed in insurance. So yeah, those are the two that really stand out for me.
Thank you. So please tell us, Sangeetha, how can our listeners reach out to you and where should they follow you?
Dr. Nick, I am on LinkedIn. All of my articles and posts and thought leadership bits are posted there. And I try to be a very active member of the community. I'm also active in our CHRO communities, as well as whatever networking events there are. I try to get into that to make sure that, we're helping the people that come after us, and we share our knowledge and capabilities and skills, as well as just building relationships to just keep up with the industry best practice.
And last but not least, Sangeetha, what is your advice for the millions of learners who are now looking to leave school to enter the new world of work? What are maybe one or two factors they should keep in mind?
The world of work has changed. I don't want to say that university degrees are not relevant. They still are relevant depending on the type of field you get into. But we also have to be cognizant that in STEM faculties and jobs that we have, short, sharp bursts of learning are equally important. Being able to pivot your skill set and have a kit of parts, which I often refer to. When you open that bag, you need to ensure whatever skills you have is relevant for what you want to do. I use myself as an example. I have done a social science, I've done an LLB, I've done a digital business strategy, and all of these little bits come together to provide a unique skill set as and when the need arises. You also need to equip yourself with knowledge across various topics, across various skill sets, so that when you are in a boardroom, you can contribute to a conversation. You don't just put up your hands and go, I'm the HR person or I'm the CFO, and we just contribute to that expertise from a discussion perspective. So for me, it is diversify your skills, reevaluate them. Short, sharp bursts of learning are definitely in at the moment, and make sure you educate yourself always.
So I guess we should never stop learning.
Never stop learning. It is never too late to unlearn, to relearn, and learn new skills.
Thank you, Sangeetha, for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership and for inspiring so many future leaders.
Thank you, Dr. Nick, for the opportunity.